In the opening sequence of the narrative, we are introduced to a young man seething with a deep, personal fury. He's behind the wheel of his car, his thoughts consumed by a singular figure, a girl he claims to despise more than anyone in the world. Through gritted teeth, he mutters to himself about how she stole something profoundly precious from him. As fate would have it, his eyes land on this very girl standing ahead on the road. A surge of rage overtakes him, and he floors the accelerator, speeding directly toward her with malicious intent. The scene cuts abruptly before the outcome is revealed, leaving a chilling question hanging in the air. The story then rewinds to establish the context, beginning during a university orientation ceremony. The setting is a prestigious institution with a mandatory military training program known as RUINING. Here we meet the female protagonist, a bright and spirited young woman also named Rui Enning. She's seated with her best friend Katie, engaging in the classic pastime of observing and rating the new male students. Katie excitedly points out a particularly striking individual in a crisp white shirt. "That's Yiling," she whispers. "He's not just handsome, he's top of his class, incredibly smart, and basically campus royalty." Rui Enning's gaze follows Katie's direction, and the moment she sees Yiling, her entire demeanor shifts. A wave of recognition washes over her, and she murmurs, almost to herself, "Finally, I've found you." This cryptic statement hints at a history far deeper than a simple campus crush. The narrative immediately delves into a flashback to explain this connection. We see a younger Rui Enning visiting a music studio to retrieve her violin. As she approaches, the hauntingly beautiful strains of a familiar melody reach her ears. The tune is being played flawlessly on a piano, and the pianist is none other than a teenage Yiling. For Rui Enning, this is not just any song, it is a specific composition from her childhood. A special friend from her past, a boy she lost touch with, used to play this very melody to soothe her when she was upset, claiming he had written it himself. Overwhelmed, Rui Enning rushes into the studio, but Yiling has already departed, leaving her with a profound sense of loss and a heart full of unanswered questions. This explains her present-day euphoria. The boy she has secretly adored since childhood is not only real, but is now standing mere yards away from her. Back at the ceremony, Katie notices Rui Enning's dazed smile and demands an explanation. "What's with that look? I saw him first, you know," Rui Enning reveals her secret. "You may have just noticed him, but my feelings for him began years ago." A playful yet serious rivalry ignites between the two friends over who has the greater claim to Yiling's attention. Meanwhile, another freshman named Shan is preparing to give a welcome speech on stage. She's visibly nervous, clutching her note cards. Two senior girls nearby comment on her appearance, noting her expensive-looking dress and speculating about her wealthy background. Unbeknownst to them, Shan overhears the compliments about her gown and allows herself a small, proud smile. As she is called to the podium, she gathers her courage and begins her address. The light-hearted feud between Katie and Rui Enning escalates. To settle it, one of them proposes a challenge. Whoever confesses their feelings to Yiling first gets to claim him. Rui Enning, emboldened by destiny, agrees. Seeing Yiling about to leave the auditorium, she throws caution to the wind. In front of the entire assembly, she shouts, "Senior Yiling, I really, truly love you." The hall falls into a stunned silence. The commotion completely derails Shan's speech, leaving her mortified and flustered. At this moment, a new character erupts onto the scene. A young man with a fierce, protective scowl strides forward. This is Yao Yiling's younger brother. He immediately confronts Rui Enning. "Stop your ridiculous fantasy," he sneers. "Someone like him would never accept someone like you." Rui Enning, embarrassed and angry, retorts, "Who are you to interfere?" As Yiling slips away unnoticed, Yao leans closer. "Use your brain, maybe you'll remember who I am." Under this pressure, a memory surfaces for Rui Enning. Another flashback reveals their first disastrous meeting. A younger Rui Enning was fleeing in panic from a pursuer. She spotted Yao and begged for help. "Please save me," she cried. Yao, puffing out his chest, agreed. "Fine, but first tell me who's chasing you." He turned to look and his bravado vanished. The pursuer was an enormous, angry dog. With a yelp, Yao joined Rui Enning in her flight, now shouting, "Save me." They reached a small storage shed. Thinking only of herself, Rui Enning dashed inside and slammed the door, locking it just as Yao reached it. He pleaded and banged on the wood as the dog arrived. The canine, denied its original target, bit Yao on the leg. He screamed in pain while Rui Enning, safe inside, listened in terrified silence. Remembering this cowardly act, Rui Enning's face falls in the present. "So, that was you," she whispers. "Yes, it was me," Yao confirms coldly. "And now I'm going to make your life difficult." Just as a fresh argument is about to erupt, Yao reveals his identity. "I am Yiling's brother." This news strikes Rui Enning like a physical blow. "I've just made an enemy of my future boyfriend's brother," she thinks in horror. Their squabble has caused irreparable damage. Shan, utterly rattled, is unable to restart her speech. Afterwards, a senior student berates her mercilessly. "You humiliated our university in front of important guests, and look at this dress, it's clearly designer." Are you trying to make it seem like we squander school funds on lavish uniforms for students? Shan tries to explain that her mother gifted her the dress for this special day, but the senior dismisses her. A poor girl like you suddenly wearing expensive clothes? Where did the money come from? The word poor triggers Shan. Yes, I am poor, she fires back. Should I wear a sign announcing it so everyone pities me? Do I have no right to wear something nice for one day? The senior, insulted by her defiance, uses her influence to have Shan's name removed from the college financial aid list, a devastating blow. Later, Shan receives a call from her mother who asks about the speech and the dress. Shan fights back tears asking where her mother bought it. The answer, which is not shown, clearly distresses Shan deeply. As she walks away in anguish, she collides with Yao. He helps her up, but in the process accidentally tears the hem of her now cursed dress. Trying to make amends, he says, "Actually, it looks better now. It was too long before." Shan stares at him, this strange, blunt boy who appeared in her moment of despair, and feels an unexpected flutter in her chest. A classic case of love at first sight born from chaos. Rui Enning, ever resourceful, devises a plan. She sends Katie on a decoy mission to distract Yao while she pursues Yi Ling. She tells Katie she needs to buy supplies before the military training bus departs. Katie, still curious about Rui Enning's intense fixation, asks for the full story. As Rui Enning explains the childhood connection, Katie becomes so engrossed she doesn't realize she is perched on what she thinks is a stone statue. It is, in fact, a student performing a street mime, frozen in position. When a passerby drops a coin into his hat, Katie shrieks in realization and embarrassment, chasing the poor mime away in a fit of rage. Elsewhere, Yi Ling is conversing with Yao, who asks if he knows the girl who publicly proposed. Yi Ling dismisses it as a prank or a dare. At that moment, Rui Enning seizes her chance, pulling Yi Ling into a secluded side corridor. Face to face with him, she is struck anew by his presence and her conviction solidifies. Her feelings are genuine. Before she can explain further, Yao's furious shouts echo down the hall. "Get away from my brother." Rui Enning, acting on impulse, grabs Yi Ling's hand and runs, leading him into an empty laboratory. Inside, Yi Ling is understandably bewildered. "You expect me to believe in love at first sight?" he questions. Rui Enning insists, "It wasn't the first sight, we knew each other as children." Their intense conversation is interrupted by the arrival of faculty members. Among them is a respected Asian painting teacher. To everyone's astonishment, especially Yi Ling's, Rui Enning runs to the woman and calls her mom. It is revealed that Rui Enning is the daughter of this famed artist, a fact that positions her as not just wealthy, but from a family of significant cultural stature. Yi Ling, who has long aspired to study under this very teacher, is stunned by the coincidence. Yao arrives, gleeful at the prospect of Rui Enning getting into trouble. Outside, Yi Ling's mother confronts him. Furious, he was alone with that woman's daughter. She forbids him from ever becoming the painting teacher's student, revealing a deep, personal animosity toward Rui Enning's mother. Yi Ling is left confused by the intensity of this old grudge. The students finally board the bus for military training. Katie notices a handsome boy, the very mime from earlier, named Chenmo, but fails to recognize him without his costume. Yao strategically positions himself next to Rui Enning on the bus to act as a barrier between her and his brother. Shan boards nervously and upon seeing Yao, quickly moves to the back, further intriguing him. Yao warns Rui Enning to leave his brother alone, calling her a troublemaker. Rui Enning apologizes sincerely for the dog incident, offering him chocolate as a peace offering. Yao, suspicious, refuses. When a teacher scolds them for eating on the bus, both are caught with mouths full of chocolate, sharing a moment of silent, conspiratorial laughter. During the journey, Yi Ling offers water to a withdrawn Shan. When her bag falls, he picks it up for her. She pretends to be listening to music to avoid conversation. Yi Ling remarks gently, "I do the same when I want to be alone." Shan, defensive, replies, "I'm not like you, I'm different." The exchange leaves a strained silence. At the military training camp, the commanding officer outlines the 6 classical arts they will study: archery, reading, music, etiquette, writing, and mathematics. When asked their reasons for attending, Rui Enning declares boldly, "I came here for Yi Ling because I like him." Her fearless honesty earns a mix of shock and admiration from the crowd, while Yao fumes at her shamelessness and Shan rolls her eyes. Rui Enning is disappointed to learn she will not be rooming near Yi Ling but is assigned to share a room with Shan. She apologizes to Shan for disrupting her speech. Shan responds coldly, "Do whatever you want." The tension escalates when Shan produces the white dress. "How dare you sell your used clothes to my mother?" she accuses, her voice trembling with humiliation. "Do you enjoy looking down on me?" Before Rui Enning can explain, Shan unleashes her pent-up resentment. She reveals that her mother has worked as a maid in Rui Enning's house for a decade. "You could have paid her more instead of throwing your cast-offs at us." Because of the scene you caused, I lost my financial aid. You must be thrilled. Rui Enning is horrified by the misunderstanding. She tries to explain that she never intended to insult them, but Shan refuses to listen. Finally, Rui Enning says, "The dress is yours now, burn it if you want, and you can call me Miss if it makes you feel better." She walks away, wounded. Truth of the dress is shown in another flashback. While packing, Rui Enning told Shan's mother she no longer wanted the dress and suggested throwing it away. Seeing the older woman's evident admiration for the garment, Rui Enning insisted she take it. Shan's mother, too proud to accept charity, insisted on paying. Rui Enning, not wanting to embarrass her, named a token price of 150 rupees for the designer dress, a fraction of its worth, just to allow the woman to accept it with dignity. Shan, unaware of this kindness, had jumped to the worst conclusion. Later, Katie drags Rui Enning off, having discovered the identity of the pervert statue guy. Chenmo, they find him, and Shan is there too. Chenmo is profusely apologizing to Shan for the earlier incident. Rui Enning, wanting to defend her friend's honor, moves to slap Chenmo Yao. Ever the intervener, steps in front of him at the last second, and Rui Enning's slap lands squarely on Yao's face. The impact is so hard he is left momentarily speechless. An apple he was eating lodged comically in his cheek. At the infirmary, a bemused doctor pieces together the story. "Let me get this straight. You hit him so hard food got stuck he can't talk, and you hurt your own hand." Rui Enning nods miserably. When the doctor tends to Yao, he dramatically mimes the entire event, pointing accusingly at a sheepish Rui Enning. Once treated, Rui Enning offers a sincere apology. To her surprise, Yao brushes it off. "It was my fault for getting in the way." In this moment, a truce is silently forged. Rui Enning then pleads with him, "Please don't tell your brother about this. He'll think I'm a violent monster." Yao considers this, then holds up 3 fingers. "From now on, you stay at least 3 meters away from me at all times. Deal?" Rui Enning quickly agrees, relieved. As she walks away, she calls back, "Just remember, don't tell Yi Ling." Yao watches her go, a complex mix of annoyance and something else in his eyes. He reflects that she is not the demure, gentle type of girl he thought he preferred, yet her fiery, troublesome nature is undeniably memorable. His protective duty toward his brother remains, but the lines of simple hatred are beginning to blur. In a quieter moment, Yi Ling seeks out Shan in her room. He hands her a care package, an apology from the university for the senior's harsh behavior on the bus. He gently reveals that he overheard the senior's cruel tirade about her dress and financial aid. In a flashback, we see Yi Ling confronting that senior afterwards, defending Shan's character and having her reinstated on the aid list. He tells Shan he has also included an application for a good on-campus part-time job in the bag. His quiet, observant kindness touches Shan deeply. As he leaves, she is left with a glowing heart, her initial impression of the aloof Yi Ling completely transformed. He is not just a handsome senior, but a person of principle and unexpected compassion. The following day dawned, bringing with it a fresh set of complications and burgeoning emotions. Yao awoke from a fitful sleep, his dreams haunted not only by the traumatic memory of the angry dog from his childhood, but now also by the absurd and painful image of an apple being lodged in his cheek. The psychic residue of his humiliating encounter with Rui Enning had firmly embedded itself in his subconscious. He jolted awake in a cold sweat, his heart pounding. Shan, who happened to be nearby, noticed his distressed state and asked with genuine concern if he was all right. Yao, still groggy and embarrassed, mumbled a denial, his gaze inadvertently falling to a mirror where he saw the medicinal ointment smeared inelegantly across his face. This only deepened his sense of aggrievement. Observing his discomfort, Shan felt a familiar flutter of sympathy. But before her feelings could settle, Yao abruptly reminded her of his self-imposed rule. "Remember the 3-meter distance," he stated flatly, rebuilding the wall between them. This private moment was shattered by the arrival of Yi Ling, who strode in with an uncharacteristic sternness. He immediately began to admonish his younger brother. "How could you speak to Rui Enning in such a manner?" Yi Ling demanded. "She has confided in me about the entire incident yesterday. It's clear the fault was not hers, yet you subjected her to harsh and unjust accusations." To drive his point home, Yi Ling gestured toward Rui Enning, who stood nearby, her eyes artfully downcast. "Look at her, she was weeping all night because of your words." Yao was rendered speechless, a storm of indignation and grudging admiration swirling within him. This girl is not just clever, she's a masterful actress, he thought, stunned by how effortlessly she had turned his own brother against him. He was trapped, unable to defend himself without seeming more petulant. Yi Ling silenced any attempted rebuttal with a final, disapproving look before walking away with Rui Enning in tow. As they walked, Yi Ling mused aloud, his tone a mix of confusion and concern. "My brother, he seems changed lately. I don't understand this new tendency to be so contentious with others, especially a girl." He turned to Rui Enning, his expression softening into one of protective resolve. "If he troubles you again, you must inform me immediately." Rui Enning seized the opportunity the chivalry presented. With a nod, she agreed, then swiftly pivoted the conversation. "Of course. But first, you should give me your WeChat ID." Before he could process the request, she had her phone out, insistently holding the QR code up to him. Yiling was initially taken aback by her boldness, but a small, involuntary smile touched his lips. He complied, scanning her code. As Rui Enning skipped away, her mission accomplished, Yiling watched her retreating figure, the smile lingering. A new thought occurred to him. Perhaps her unconventional, spirited nature was not just amusing but genuinely endearing. Meanwhile, back at the barracks, Yao was grappling with the social fallout of his defeat. Granted leave due to his injury, he became the subject of whispered giggles and pointed glances from a group of female cadets. "Look, it's the guy who got beaten up by a girl." One of them snickered, not quite softly enough. Yao's face burned with humiliation. He was convinced Rui Enning had broadcast the slap incident to the entire camp, deliberately destroying his reputation. His frustration boiled over when an officer distributing water bottles approached and asked, with misplaced sympathy, "Is it true your friend Rui Enning cried herself to sleep last night?" Before Yao could formulate a scathing reply, Shan, who was standing nearby, interjected quietly, "No, she wasn't crying. She was just very carefully applying eye makeup this morning." This revelation that Rui Enning's tears were a strategic cosmetic application sent a fresh wave of fury through Yao. "She's not just dramatic, she's a calculating performer," he fumed silently. The teasing from the other girls continued, pushing him to his limit. He vowed under his breath to teach Rui Enning a proper lesson. Opportunity presented itself later when Rui Enning, hurrying to the canteen after a frantic call from Katie about dwindling food supplies, found only one bicycle available at the transport stand. Yao, with the same destination in mind, spotted it simultaneously. In a swift, competitive dash, he reached it first and claimed the seat. Undeterred, Rui Enning simply hopped onto the rear rack before he could pedal away. Despite his shouts for her to dismount, she held on stubbornly. In retaliation, Yao began to ride erratically, swerving and bumping over rough patches in a deliberate attempt to shake her off. "Have you no shame?" Rui Enning yelled over the wind, clinging tightly. "I'm practically your future sister-in-law. A sister-in-law is like a mother, you should respect me." Yao scoffed, shouting back, "Sister-in-law, you're a witch." Seeing a particularly nasty pothole ahead and anticipating a catastrophic spill, Rui Enning made a split-second decision and leaped from the moving bicycle. The sudden shift in weight, however, sent Yao spiraling out of control. He crashed hard, the bicycle skidding out from under him, and he landed with a sickening thud, injuring his head again. For the second time in as many days, the unlikely pair found themselves in the infirmary. The doctor, recognizing Yao, sighed with exasperation. "Let me guess, another encounter with this formidable young lady?" he asked, gesturing toward Rui Enning. Just then, Yiling arrived to check on his brother. On the walk back, Rui Enning launched into a masterful performance of wide-eyed innocence. "It wasn't my fault at all. He insisted I get on so he could give me a ride to the canteen. I tried to refuse." Yao, his head bandaged, erupted. "Can you believe her audacity? Listen to these lies." But Yiling held up a hand, his patience wearing thin. He fixed Yao with a firm gaze. "Do you even know who Rui Enning's mother is?" Yao, confused by the non-sequitur, shook his head. "She is Teacher Ming," Yiling stated, letting the significance hang in the air. "The very painting master you have admired for years, the one I have been trying to study under. Rui Enning is her daughter." The revelation acted like a bucket of cold water. Yao's indignation sputtered and died, replaced by stunned silence. The girl he had been treating as a vulgar nuisance was the daughter of a revered artist, a connection he desperately needed for his brother's sake. The dynamic shifted instantly. In a calmer conversation afterward, Yiling expressed his own surprise, learning that the girl who had been so boldly pursuing him was the key to his artistic aspirations. Rui Enning, sensing the change, adopted a magnanimous tone. "Please don't worry on my account. No matter how much your brother bullies or troubles me, I won't let it affect my willingness to help you. That is my principle." Yao could only stare dumbfounded as she seamlessly cast herself as the long-suffering victim. "She's the one who hits me," he managed to choke out, but Yiling was already moving on, his trust in Rui Enning seemingly cemented. The conversation turned to Yiling's ongoing struggle. Yao asked if he had visited the remote village again, seeking the reclusive master who possessed unique, irreplaceable pigments. Yiling evaded the question, but Rui Enning pressed for details. Yiling explained, "Do you remember the area where we first met, where that dog chased me because of you?" She nodded. "There is a master there, Uncle Yan. He creates colors I need to restore a priceless family painting. But every time I approach, he chases me away. He won't even speak to me." A brilliant smile spread across Rui Enning's face. "Uncle Yan, he's my great-uncle. Our families are very close." Hope ignited in Yiling's eyes. "You could introduce me?" he asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Of course," Rui Enning said, her mind already weaving a plan. "But there's a condition. We'll have to sneak out after hours, which is forbidden. My roommate Shan is very by the book. If she sees us leaving, she'll report it. You need to keep her distracted." Yiling was skeptical. "Shan isn't like that. She's honest, not a tattletale." Rui Enning shrugged. "If she follows us and we stop her, you'll see her true nature. She'll complain to the teachers out of spite." Yao, who had been listening, saw a chance to test this theory and perhaps gain some leverage. Fine, he interjected. If she does as you predict and tries to report you, I'll personally make sure she's occupied, then you two can go meet your uncle. A pact was formed. That evening, as Rui Enning prepared for her covert departure, Shan's watchful eyes did not miss a thing. The moment Rui Enning slipped out, Shan moved to follow. However, Yao was lying in wait. He intercepted her with an unexpected request. Shan, he said, his tone uncharacteristically earnest. Would you model for me? I need to practice my sketching and your features are perfect. For Shan, the choice between tailing her rival and spending time with the boy she was infatuated with was no choice at all. She agreed, blushing slightly. Yi Ling, observing this from a distance, pulled Rui Enning aside. Your real plan wasn't to distract Shan, was it? It was to distract Yao. Rui Enning gave a non-committal smile, neither confirming nor denying. Her true motive had indeed been to remove the protective, interfering brother from the equation. Yi Ling simply chuckled, amused by her strategic mind. The two then embarked on their secret journey. As they walked through the twilight, Yi Ling felt a sudden awkward impulse to take her hand. Hesitating, he instead reached for the sleeve of her jacket. Rui Enning, understanding his shyness, happily latched onto his arm, clinging to his sleeve like an excited child. The simple gesture filled Yi Ling with a profound and unfamiliar happiness. At the camp's perimeter wall, Yi Ling, as a senior with certain privileges, could exit through the gate. For Rui Enning, a more creative approach was needed. With a surprising agility, she scaled the wall, dropping lightly to the other side. They were off. Meanwhile, Yao had settled Shan into a posing chair, placing a polished red apple in her hand. You are the most compelling subject I've ever had, he said, and though the line was practiced, the sincerity in his eyes made Shan's heart skip. He began to sketch, but his movements were deliberately, painstakingly slow. His real goal was to buy time, ensuring Shan was occupied until his brother's safe return. Rui Enning led Yi Ling to a modest house at the village's edge. They knocked but received only stubborn silence from within. Uncle Yan's resentment was a tangible force. Rui Enning, however, was undaunted. She raised her voice. Uncle, you may not want to see him, but will you refuse your own great niece as well? The door cracked open, revealing the surprised, weathered face of the old master. His stern expression faltered at the sight of Rui Enning, standing defiantly beside the very boy he had been rejecting. Back at the camp, hours had passed. Shan, who had been holding her pose with quiet determination, was beginning to wilt from exhaustion. Yao, engrossed in sending periodic check-in messages to his brother, failed to notice her fatting energy. He simply urged Yi Ling to hurry. At the house, Rui Enning broke the tension by presenting a gift, a pair of fine reading glasses. My mother asked me to bring these to you after camp, she explained sweetly. But I was worried about your eyes, so I came early. Uncle Yan accepted the glasses, testing them, a flicker of pleasure crossing his face before he reset his scowl. Don't try to sweet-talk me, girl. I will not give my colors to your friend. Why are you so stubborn? Rui Enning pressed, her tone a blend of challenge and genuine curiosity. When he remained silent, she playfully threatened, Fine, then we'll come every day. I'll bring him here to pester you until you agree. Wearied by her persistence and disarmed by her familiar, cheeky demeanor, Uncle Yan finally relented. He began to speak, his voice low with old anger. His grievance, it turned out, was not with Yi Ling personally, but with the Blue Foundation, the company owned by Yi Ling's mother. He spoke of broken promises and disregarded traditions. While this confrontation unfolded, Yao finally glanced up from his phone and saw Shan's pallor. Guilt washed over him. You're exhausted, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize, he murmured, his usual brashness gone. Shan managed a weak smile. It's okay, I'm happy you asked me, no one has ever drawn my portrait before. When he finally showed her the finished sketch, her eyes filled with tears of joy. She praised his talent effusively, calling him a true artist. Yao, unaccustomed to such heartfelt admiration, brushed it off modestly. Their conversation deepened. Shan asked why he pursued painting if his sketching was so gifted. Yao explained it was family expectation, his brother loved painting and his grandfather had decreed it their path. Sketching was merely his private escape. Shan then shared her own motivation. She studied art to win scholarships to ease the financial burden on her mother. For children from families like yours, she said carefully, not nomming Rui Enning, a portrait might be a common birthday gift. For me, it was always a dream. Moved by her vulnerability, Yao felt a surge of protective warmth. In a dramatic, impulsive gesture, he crumpled the finished portrait and tossed it aside. As Shan gasped, he declared, that one was practice. I'll make you a real one now. She posed again, and he sketched with a focused intensity that left her breathless. This tender scene was observed by a passerby, who immediately called Rui Enning to report the budding connection between Yao and Shan. Before the call could connect, however, Shan herself approached, claiming she wished to apologize to Rui Enning and talk privately. Shan, weary of conflict, agreed and left with her, leaving Yao alone with his thoughts and his unfinished sketch. Back with Uncle Yan, the full story emerged. His prized banana plants, which he used in his color-making process, had been damaged by careless workers allegedly contracted through the Blue Foundation. Rui Enning listened intently, then explained that the foundation merely connected workers with jobs. The fault lay with the irresponsible individuals, not the company. She also described Uncle Yan's painstaking craft, how he sometimes ground gold into his pigments, a days-long fastidious process that left him physically drained. Her empathy and understanding began to melt his resistance. He saw that the foundation could provide him with reliable, vetted assistance. Slowly, he agreed to a collaboration. Elated, Yi Ling and Rui Enning prepared to leave, but Uncle Yan issued a final challenge. Yi Ling must first successfully repair a complex, ancient artifact using his artistic skill to prove his worth and respect for the craft. They accepted the daunting task. Yao, meanwhile, had completed the second portrait. Shan was speechless with happiness. Yi Ling and Rui Enning returned, and Yi Ling praised Rui Enning's intelligence and diplomatic skill. Flattered, Rui Enning playfully recorded him repeating the compliments on her phone. In the soft evening light, she couldn't help but notice how handsome he looked. Their moment was interrupted by Katie's frantic call. She had discovered Rui Enning was missing, and putting two and two together, shrieked her realization that she was out with Yi Ling. Shan, overhearing this, felt a sharp pang of jealousy and heartbreak. Yao was caught off guard, unsure how to react to the whirlwind of gossip and emotion. Shan left the scene, her feelings in turmoil, while Yao was left to ponder the complicated web of relationships he was now entangled in. The following days saw a subtle shift in the dynamic between Yao and Rui Enning. In another misadventure, Rui Enning returned from an errand with a small ring she'd found, but while climbing back over the wall, her pants caught and tore loudly. Yao, hearing the commotion, rushed over without thinking. Seeing her predicament, he immediately whipped off his jacket and tied it around her waist to cover the tear. The proximity and the intimate nature of the gesture left both flustered and silent, an electric, unacknowledged tension crackling between them. Rui Enning, recovering first, sternly made him promise not to tell Yi Ling. Their interaction quickly defaulted to their usual bickering, but the undercurrent had changed. He returned his jacket to her discreetly the next evening. The group began working in earnest on Uncle Yan's restoration test. During one strenuous activity, Rui Enning injured her hand. Yao was the first to notice, stepping forward instinctively to examine the wound before catching himself. He teased her instead, asking if Yi Ling was starting to develop feelings for his clumsy admirer. The comment irritated Rui Enning, while Yi Ling merely laughed, enjoying their constant, spark-filled rivalry. When it came time for their next visit to Uncle Yan, Rui Enning initially planned to skip it for a prior commitment but changed her mind. This time, Yao accompanied her to present their completed work. Uncle Yan inspected the restored item, his eyes sharp. He then pointed to a box of pigments and grunted, "Separate these." Rui Enning began to explain that Yao had organized them earlier with minimal help, but Uncle Yan cut her off displeased. He questioned Yao's methods. Calmly, with a confidence that surprised everyone, Yao began to explain the subtle, almost imperceptible variations in hue and saturation between the pigments, demonstrating an intuitive, masterful understanding of color that went far beyond technical skill. Uncle Yan was visibly impressed. He handed Yao another, more complex pigment blend. "Separate this," he commanded. As Yao worked with silent, focused precision, Uncle Yan watched, his earlier sternness giving way to something like awe. Finally, he made an offer. "Become my student, agree to learn from me, and the entire color box is yours to give to your brother." The room held its breath. Yao, however, after a long moment, shook his head. "I respect your art, Master Yan, but I have no wish for formal training. This is not my path." Despite Rui Enning's attempts to persuade him, Yao stood firm and walked away. On their journey back to camp, a sudden panicked cry pierced the air. A child had fallen into a nearby creek. Without a second's hesitation, Yao plunged into the water. The details were chaotic, but the outcome was clear. The child was saved. Upon their late return, their teacher scolded them for being absent without leave, unaware of their heroism. When the truth later surfaced, they were publicly commended. The moment turned comical when it was revealed the child was actually a small, fluffy dog, leading to laughter throughout the assembly. Unfazed, Yao and Rui Enning accepted the accolades together, even posing for a commemorative photo, an image that spoke of an unexpected partnership. Shan, observing this growing camaraderie, the shared secret, the rescued dog, the joint photo, felt the seeds of jealousy take deeper root within her. As the military training camp concluded and the students returned home, relationships continued to evolve. Rui Enning spoke warmly with her mother. Shan, whose mother had been ill, quietly thanked Rui Enning's mother for arranging a doctor's visit, a kindness that complicated her feelings of resentment. Grateful, she also praised Yi Ling's artistic dedication to Mrs. Ming, which ultimately led to Yi Ling being granted a long-awaited meeting with the master. Uncle Yan, still pondering Yao's refusal, asked Yi Ling about his brother. Yiling showed him a photo of the damaged ancestral painting. Uncle Yan understood then the urgency and the weight of legacy. He couldn't force a pupil, but he recognized a rare talent when he saw one. He gave Yiling the precious pigments, trusting the artistry would be in good hands. On the train home, Yiling reflected on Uncle Yan's words about Yao's gift. Yao, for his part, probed his brother about his feelings for Rui Enning. Yiling, introspective and unsure, offered no clear answer. The family prepared for Yiling's important interview with Mrs. Ming and awaited their grandfather's return, though his arrival was delayed. Shan at home could not stop gazing at the portrait Yao had drawn, her infatuation glowing brighter with each passing day. The next morning, Rui Enning rehearsed how she would finally reveal to Yiling that she was his childhood friend, the one who remembered his melody. Unbeknownst to her, Shan overheard these plans and, driven by a mix of jealousy and a desire to disrupt what she saw as Rui Enning's perfect trajectory, began to scheme. Chaos descended upon the return to university life. Students were distracted, leading to a series of comic mishaps. Katie got a large sticker impossibly tangled in her hair. Shan had an accident with a hair straightener. In the midst of the commotion, Yao came to Shan's aid, their closeness leading to another accidentally intimate moment. Flustered and seeking to break the tension, Yao, in a moment of pure, unfiltered panic, grabbed a nearby pair of scissors and snipped a lock of Rui Enning's hair as she walked by, then fled the scene. Rui Enning stood frozen, touching the severed strands in disbelief before her shock ignited into pure fury. Meanwhile, Shan was discovered sitting alone in a dim corner, clutching a styling tool and weeping. She had been mocked earlier for a minor mistake, and to compound her humiliation, someone had recorded a video of the incident instead of taking a still photo, amplifying her embarrassment. Rui Enning, pushing aside her own anger for a moment, approached to console her. "It's okay, they didn't take a photo, just a video," she said, intending to be reassuring. To Rui Enning's astonishment, this made things worse. Shan erupted into hysterical screams, feeling exposed and violated by the moving image. Overwhelmed, she fled. Rui Enning's attention snapped back to her own grievance. She realized with dawning horror that the person who had mutilated her hair was none other than Yao. A fresh wave of rage consumed her. She screamed into the empty hallway, her voice echoing with a vow of vengeance. "Yao, I won't let you live for this." The stage was set for a new chapter of their war, one where the lines between hatred, attraction, and complex loyalty were more blurred than ever. The following day, during a lecture hall session, Yao found his focus fractured, his thoughts persistently circling back to Rui Enning and the series of charged, confusing encounters they had shared. Across the room, Rui Enning herself was experiencing a similar internal disruption. She replayed the previous evening's events, the torn clothing, the borrowed jacket, the unexpected proximity, and felt a disquieting flutter in her chest. Dismissing it as absurd overthinking, she forcibly redirected her attention to the professor's words, determined to believe nothing of significance had transpired. Later, as classes concluded, the skis opened unexpectedly. Rui Enning and Katie found themselves stranded outside the main building, caught in a sudden downpour without an umbrella. They spotted Yao approaching, and for a fleeting moment, hope flickered in Rui Enning's mind that he might offer shelter. Instead, he walked straight past them, his expression unreadable, disappearing into the rain without a glance. Another male student, noticing the two girls' predicament, gallantly offered his umbrella to Katie. True to her loyal nature, Katie refused to abandon her best friend, leaving both of them to endure the deluge. At that moment, Shan appeared. Seeing the boy with the umbrella, she quickly attached herself to him, insisting they walk together under its cover, leaving Rui Enning even more frustrated and soaking wet. What Rui Enning didn't know was that this scene was a carefully orchestrated ploy by Yao. He had deliberately given his own umbrella to his brother Yiling, with a subtle suggestion that Yiling should be the one to assist Rui Enning. Yao then positioned himself at a distance, pretending indifference while secretly watching, a knot of concern tightening in his stomach as he saw her getting drenched. Yiling, taking the hint, approached Rui Enning with the offered umbrella. As they walked, the rain serendipitously began to ease. Rui Enning sighed, running a hand through her damp, tangled hair. "My hair must be a complete disaster now," she lamented. Yiling, always gentle, offered a solution. He produced a simple pencil from his bag. With practiced, surprisingly deft movements, he gathered her damp locks and twisted them into an elegant improvised updo, securing it with the pencil. "I used to practice on myself," he explained softly, a nostalgic smile touching his lips. "My mother always wanted a daughter, so when I was young she'd sometimes put ribbons in my hair. I hated it then, but the skill stuck. I have long hair myself sometimes, you learn to manage it." This anecdote, a mother wishing for a daughter and treating her son as one, struck a deep, resonant chord within Rui Enning. Her heart gave a sudden, powerful thud. It was an exact echo of a story told to her in childhood by her special friend, the boy she had been searching for. He had confided that he ran away sometimes because his mother, longing for a girl, would dress him up. The memory washed over her with such intensity it stole her breath. For the rest of their walk and as they spent time together under the clearing, star-speckled sky, Rui Enning was lost in a whirlwind of doubt. A terrifying, thrilling question took root in her mind. Had she been mistaken all along? Was her childhood friend not the composed, artistic Yi Ling, but his fiery, troublesome younger brother Yao? Before she could find a way to voice this seismic doubt, Yi Ling's phone rang urgently. He apologized profusely and had to depart abruptly, leaving Rui Enning alone with her spiraling confusion. Her turmoil was compounded by another crisis. Shan was in a state of furious distress. A bedsheet she had used to climb out of a window, an act of rebellion or necessity, had contained a hidden stash of her carefully saved money which was now lost. She confronted Rui Enning, her accusations scalding. "You must have taken it. You think just because we're poor you can treat us any way you like. You give us your cast-off clothes and look down on us, and now you steal from me?" She also blamed Rui Enning for troubling her mother with meaningless errands at their home. Rui Enning, stung and frustrated, fired back. "I have never ever looked down on you or your mother. I have always treated her with the utmost respect. If living with me is such a torment, then leave. Your family's financial situation is not a weapon for you to wield against me. I considered your mother family, but if this is how you repay that consideration, then from now on I will treat you exactly as your behavior deserves." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Shan could only glare, speechless with rage and humiliation. Yao, who had been on a phone call nearby, overheard the entire blistering exchange. He abruptly ended his call and stepped away, a troubled frown on his face. Determined to resolve at least one issue, Rui Enning went to an ATM, withdrew the equivalent amount of the lost money, and placed it on Shan's desk in their shared room. She then called Shan inside, not wanting her to search pointlessly in the continuing rain. As Shan entered, a sudden, brilliant flash of lightning illuminated the room, casting her furious expression in a stark, terrifying light. For a moment, Rui Enning felt a genuine flicker of fear at the depth of the hatred she saw. The next morning, Rui Enning noted with a sigh that the money remained untouched on the desk. Shan, having gotten thoroughly soaked the night before, was sniffling with a heavy cold. At the canteen, she ordered only the cheapest, smallest meal available, determined to stretch her limited funds. In class, Katie, ever dramatic and protective, read aloud a news story about a girl who murdered her friend. She turned to Rui Enning with wide, serious eyes. "Promise me you won't drink anything Shan offers you or go anywhere alone with her. She's unstable." Rui Enning found this extreme, but Katie's worry was palpable. Both girls suffering from colds received small kindnesses from classmates. Someone lent Shan a warm coat, someone else gave Rui Enning cold medicine. When Rui Enning tried to buy Shan a proper meal, Shan refused outright, her pride a palpable barrier. She ate only a single, meager portion all day. Rui Enning, exasperated, insisted, "Either take the money to buy food or come eat properly in the canteen with me." Katie, however, stubbornly refused to sit with Shan, her grudge firmly in place. Meanwhile, Yao received a call and stepped away, leaving his phone unattended on a table. Seizing the opportunity, Katie pounced. "Was it you?" she asked him directly when he returned. "That night under the stars with Rui Enning, was it you she was with?" Yao merely laughed, a dismissive, non-committal sound, and refused to elaborate. Rui Enning, however, was done with evasion. She needed the truth. Her demand was interrupted by a sudden, piercing scream. They rushed toward the sound, finding Shan and Katie in a pitch-black storeroom. The lights had failed, trapping them. Katie managed to squeeze out just as Shan, in a fit of anger and frustration, slammed the door shut from the inside, locking herself and Rui Enning in together. Rui Enning's phone battery was dead, leaving them trapped in the oppressive darkness. Hours passed. Shan, weakened by hunger, refused to touch the dry fruits on a shelf that Rui Enning pointed out. She drank only water to quiet the gnawing in her stomach. In the intimate, confessional darkness, Rui Enning turned to where she sensed Yao was standing outside the door. She asked the question one final time, her voice stripped of all pretense. "The boy from my childhood, the one who played the melody whose mother wanted a daughter, was it you?" This time there was no evasion. Yao's voice, quiet but clear, came through the door. "Yes, it was me all along." He slipped a folded piece of paper under the door, a childish sketch of a girl with a violin drawn by a much younger Yao. Rui Enning's hands trembled as she held it. A wave of euphoric clarity washed over her, her memories finally had a face, and it was his. But Yao's next words were like ice water. "The past doesn't matter to me anymore." He proposed a bizarre, fatalistic wager. He threw the sketch out into the still falling rain. "If the rain destroys it, our past is erased. If it survives, you stay with me." Rui Enning, infuriated by this attempt to let weather dictate her heart, refused to be passive. She pushed past him, ran into the rain, and deliberately poured a cup of water over the precious drawing, ruining it herself. Then she turned to him, her eyes blazing. "There, I've destroyed it, and I'll tell you another truth. My phone wasn't dead last night. I stayed out in the rain deliberately, to repay you for staying with me when we were children, when you were scared of the dark." She took a shuddering breath, laying her soul bare in the storm. I hate you, Yao. I think I hate you more than anyone in the world, but that doesn't change what we were. In that act of defiant destruction, she believed she was freeing them both, releasing him from any obligation of their shared history. What she didn't see was the effect it had on him. As the ink bled away on the paper, something shifted within Yao. The shock on his face wasn't of loss, but of revelation. For the first time, he understood the tangled, potent truth. The girl he had resented, fought with, and secretly worried over was the same one who had occupied a sacred place in his childhood memories. And the intensity of his feelings for her, he now realized, went far beyond hatred. He chose, however, to hold this realization close, taking no immediate action. Later, Yao explained the meaning of the sketch to Yiling, describing it as a symbol of a girl from my past. When Yiling gently probed, "Do you like someone now?" Yao could only answer with bewildered honesty. "I don't know, I'm confused." In class, his gaze kept drifting to Rui Enning, who pointedly ignored him. Shan, meanwhile, remained a volatile mix of hunger, irritation, and deep-seated pain, the roots of which Yao perceptively understood. "Her temper comes from being humiliated," he explained to someone, especially in front of someone she admired. A friendly basketball match was organized between the brothers, drawing a large crowd. Shan came to watch, still oblivious to the profound connections unraveling around her. A flashback revealed the origin of her current bitterness. A boy from her past had once kindly helped her when she was injured. That same boy, now twisted by time and his own grievances, had recently confronted her, publicly mocking her poverty to get revenge. Shan had pleaded with him to stop, but he relented only when Yao intervened. Yao hadn't coddled her. He scolded her sharply for playing the victim. "If you're hungry, then eat," he'd stated, his tone brooking no argument. He then accompanied her to the canteen and in a gesture of immense subtle kindness pretended to be ravenously hungry himself, ordering large portions so she could eat without shame. For the first time in what felt like forever, Shan ate a full meal and smiled, genuinely touched by his unspoken care. Content after this small victory, Yao went to greet Yiling on the basketball court. Meanwhile, Rui Enning wrestled with the burden of her newfound truth. She finally confessed to Yiling the core of the childhood mix-up. When she had proposed all those years ago, she had mistaken him for his brother. Yiling absorbed this with quiet grace. He reassured her that the past, with all its confusion, no longer held power over him. "What matters is now," he said, his voice filled with a new certainty. "I have come to love you, Rui Enning, deeply. Let's make new memories just ours." Rui Enning was left utterly speechless, her heart torn between past revelation and present devotion. Shan, in a rare moment of clarity, later thanked Yao for his help, even acknowledging that Rui Enning had likely meant well too. Yao explained that he knew about the hair straightener accident that had led to Rui Enning's impulsive haircut, absolving her of blame. As a practical solution to her hunger, Yao gifted Shan a rechargeable canteen meal card. Though she initially resisted the charity, his insistence that it was simply a tool, not a handout, made her eventually accept. He used the moment to teach a larger lesson about consequences, explaining how a small, thoughtless action could spiral into significant harm. When Rui Enning and Yiling arrived and saw Yao and Shan together, a sharp, unexpected spike of jealousy shot through Rui Enning. Yao dismissed it airily as girl matters, but the feeling lingered. Later, reflecting on her own chaotic emotions and remembering her childhood proposal to Yao, Rui Enning felt more lost than ever. Yiling, perceptive and patient, told her to take all the time she needed. "I want to build memories in your heart," he said. "I will wait for you to choose." That night, his words and the earnestness in his gaze haunted her, leaving her struggling to find her own answer. The next day, Shan, distracted, accidentally tripped and fell onto Yao, who was lost in his own thoughts. A classmate walked in on the compromising scene, but to their immense relief discreetly backed out. However, the damage was done. Rumors exploded that Yao and Shan were a couple, leading to relentless teasing. Rui Enning, witnessing a senior girl make a particularly cruel joke at Yao's expense, surprised everyone, including herself, by fiercely defending him. "You have no right to speak about him that way," she declared, calling out the senior's hypocrisy. Yao, watching this, felt a surge of admiration. He praised her courage later, which only flustered her more. Their dynamic settled back into familiar, playful banter, charged with a new undercurrent of mutual respect. At the canteen, Shan appeared, questioning why they were being so secretive. Yao simply said, "It's a secret," a response that left Shan feeling a confusing mix of happiness at being included and jealousy at being kept outside. Rui Enning wondered if Shan was deliberately trying to pull Yao away to provoke her, then sternly reminded herself she had no claim on him. In a quieter moment at home, Rui Enning sat with Yiling as he worked. Her presence was a distraction and he found himself sketching her instead. She admired his talent, and in that shared creative space their bond felt tangible and strong. Elsewhere, Shan overheard a heated phone argument and in a subsequent moment of clumsy panic, accidentally ruined an old sketch Yao was working on. Enraged, Yao grabbed her by the collar, only for the same discreet classmate to intervene again, leaving both flushed with mutual embarrassment. The college buzzed with anticipation for an upcoming stage performance. Casting was contentious. Rui Enning was the unanimous choice for heroine, but the hero's role sparked debate. A compromise was eventually reached. Rui Enning and Yao would perform together. The announcement surprised and unnerved them both. The seniors sweetened the deal. Excellence in the performance would earn 5 bonus academic points, a significant prize. Both agreed to participate. Shan observed these developments with a strategist's cold eye. She realized the extra points were meaningless for the already brilliant Rui Enning, but could be the key to securing her own desperately needed scholarship. She decided to try and win the role of Yao's assistant in the production. The next day, she approached him at lunch. Noticing the meager portion on her plate, Yao asked why she wasn't using the canteen card he'd given her. Shan explained she preferred to manage her own finances and returned the earlier cash not out of pride, but because his thoughtful gesture had been a first in her life. Touched by her sincerity, Yao accepted her explanation, and a fragile, genuine friendship began to form between them. Tensions, however, were simmering elsewhere. An incident involving Rui Enning, a storage trolley, and a late-night meeting was twisted into scandalous gossip. Shan, convinced of Rui Enning's guilt, demanded Yao back her accusations. Yao refused, his trust in Rui Enning unshakable. "She couldn't have done what you're saying," he stated firmly. But the damage was done. The story spread online, morphing into a wave of hateful comments and false accusations against Rui Enning. Amidst this digital storm, a call from her father buoyed her spirits, reminding her of her family's unwavering support. At the hospital where Yi Ling was visiting someone, he and Yao reviewed the vicious online chatter together. Yao remained adamant in his defense. "Even if the whole world turns against her, I know the truth," he vowed. Rui Enning, demonstrating her own steadfast care, brought food to Yao at the hospital, a quiet act of solidarity amidst the chaos. Shan's hostility, however, only hardened. She confronted both brothers, refusing to believe in Rui Enning's innocence. "Being poor doesn't mean I have to bow down," she declared. Her own mother scolded her for her stubbornness, but Shan was immovable, even threatening revenge against Rui Enning and her family. Her actions escalated to theft. She stole Rui Enning's phone and hurled it into a wooded area, causing a panic when Yao and others couldn't reach her. Meanwhile, Rui Enning, using a new phone, decided to retreat to her uncle Yan's house for peace. Yao, frantic with worry for her safety, followed her. Shan, jealous of the concern Yao showed for Rui Enning, informed Yi Ling of her whereabouts. Despite cold, harsh weather, Rui Enning and Yao found a strange peace at her uncle's house, sharing meals, warmth, and the company of a young relative. It was a glimpse of domestic comfort. During this time, Yi Ling handled a family emergency, his mother's hospitalization, without burdening Yao with the news. In this secluded setting, Rui Enning began to notice the depth of Yao's attentiveness, realizing his concern for her transcended mere friendship or rivalry. The trio, Rui Enning, Yao, and Yi Ling, found their bonds strengthening not just through tangled emotions, but through shared focus on studies, family duty, and mutual support. Uncle Yan offered sage advice. They should prioritize building a stable foundation, their education and futures, before navigating the treacherous waters of romance. Back at college, life resumed. Rui Enning took cheerful selfies with Katie, which drew Yi Ling's affectionate attention and Shan's bitter jealousy. Yao, increasingly tense and conflicted by his brother's open affection for the girl he himself was realizing he loved, found himself in an agonizing position. Shan, seeking to manipulate the situation, asked Yao if he would leave the performance. He refused. "If Rui Enning isn't performing, I have no reason to be in that role either," he stated, his loyalty clear. Then Shan issued a cruel public challenge to Rui Enning. She had to earn 1,000 rupees in a single day. If she succeeded, she could slap Shan in return for a past public humiliation. If she failed, Shan would slap her again. Rui Enning, her pride and fury ignited, accepted without hesitation. The bet became campus-wide news. Chenmo informed Yao, who was horrified. He had been planning a romantic, flower-filled proposal to Rui Enning for that very day. Furious, he confronted Shan. "Why do you hate her so much?" Shan mocked him, suggesting he was scared to see Rui Enning humiliated. Yao's reply was calm and absolute. "I trust her completely." Rui Enning's solution was entrepreneurial. She set up a small street food stall. Yao found her there and tried to slip away, anticipating being conscripted into labor. Rui Enning stopped him, invoking their history. "You kissed me without my permission," she reminded him. "Consider this your community service." Trapped, Yao agreed to help. Business was initially dismal. They shouted themselves hoarse to attract customers, their situation growing almost pathetic. Chenmo, ever blunt, tasted Katie's contribution to the soup and declared it terrible, wounding her feelings. As the deadline loomed, they had only 500 rupees. In a moment of inspiration, Rui Enning produced a speaker. She forced a mortified Yao to record a promotional message. When they played it on a loop, a crowd materialized as if by magic. Sales soared. A final count revealed they had reached 1,000 rupees exactly. Overwhelmed with relief and triumph, Rui Enning threw her arms around Yao in a spontaneous, joyful hug. They rushed to the performance venue. Professors and directors were already assembled. Yiling delivered a brilliant, moving performance. Shan took the stage next, but her acting was wooden, devoid of life or connection. Backstage, Rui Enning and Yao excitedly explained to Katie how the speaker had saved their bet. In her exhilaration, Rui Enning recounted the money again and her blood ran cold. She was still 100 rupees short. At this worst possible moment, Katie accidentally bumped the speaker. Yao's recorded street-hawking voice blared through the silent auditorium. The performance halted in stunned, chaotic silence. Teachers demanded an explanation. Rui Enning and Yao stood frozen, terrified. In the aftermath, the teachers criticized Shan's lifeless performance. Yiling made a bold suggestion: replace Shan with Rui Enning as the heroine and use a pre-recorded voiceover for the missing character. The directors agreed. Rui Enning, still short of her goal, made a desperate, audacious move. She offered to sell the leftover street food to the teachers and judges right then and there. To everyone's astonishment, this final push earned the last 100 rupees. The bet was won. Shan was removed from the play. Rui Enning, holding the money, faced Shan and, fulfilling the terms of their wager, slapped her firmly across the cheek. It was not an act of malice, but of finally, definitively standing up for herself. "I'm done," Rui Enning stated, her voice clear and firm. Humiliated, Shan threw her costume to the ground and fled. Rui Enning's subsequent performance was transcendent. The teachers were mesmerized. Overcome with emotion in the final scene, Yiling broke from the script and gently kissed her forehead. The auditorium erupted in gasps and then applause. Later, Yiling confessed his deep feelings to his father. Yao, in a separate, heartfelt conversation, also admitted he loved Rui Enning. The brothers confronted each other, their conflict born of love for the same woman, but ultimately decided the choice must be hers. Rui Enning, with gentle but firm resolve, expressed her gratitude and affection to Yiling, but explained her heart belonged to another. Later, through a cascade of heartfelt messages, she confessed her own feelings to Yao. Just as this hard-won happiness seemed within grasp, tragedy struck like a lightning bolt. Rui Enning learned her father had been diagnosed with cancer. She canceled her planned date with Yao and withdrew into a shell of grief and responsibility. Shan, seizing an opportunity for maximum damage, secretly photographed Rui Enning's mother, Miss Ming, in an innocent but ambiguously framed meeting with Mr. Yiling's father. She blackmailed Rui Enning, accusing her mother of an affair. Blinded by rage, heartbreak, and the need to protect her family from scandal during her father's illness, Rui Enning slapped Shan. A violent, desperate fight ensued until Miss Ren, Rui Enning's mother, arrived and, misunderstanding the situation, slapped her own daughter. Rui Enning's world shattered completely. To shield her mother from further gossip and to spare Yao from being entangled in her family's collapsing drama, Rui Enning made the most painful decision of her life. She sought out Yao and, with a cruelty she did not feel, broke up with him, coldly claiming she had never loved him. Yao was utterly devastated, but his love, though buried under layers of hurt, never truly died. Time passed. Rui Enning transformed, becoming a shadow of her former vibrant self. She buried herself in her studies, her only focus academic survival. Yao, from a distance, silently supported her, meticulously preparing study notes and leaving them where she would find them. Shan, her bitterness unsated, made one final, vicious attempt to destroy Rui Enning by planting cheat notes on her before a major exam. But Yiling, having seen enough, intervened. He discreetly switched the notes, exposing Shan's scheme in front of the entire examination board. Shan's deceit was laid bare for all to see, her reign of manipulation finally at an end. The truth had surfaced, but the scars left on all their hearts would take far longer to heal. In the emotionally charged aftermath of the exam hall, Rui Enning managed to complete her paper, her vision blurred by unshed tears. Shan, exposed and disgraced, became an object of ridicule and was left utterly isolated in her shame. The weight of her family's crisis ultimately proved too heavy to bear alongside her studies. Rui Enning made the agonizing decision to leave the university, dedicating herself entirely to her ailing father and the fragments of her broken family. She left behind a carefully worded letter for Yiling expressing gratitude and a sorrowful goodbye, but there was nothing, not a single word, for Yao. When Yao learned of this omission, the silence felt more destructive than any angry words could have been. A profound, crushing despair settled over him. He was convinced that in the ledger of her heart, he had ultimately meant nothing. This series of catastrophes pushed Yiling to a point of desperate inquiry. A single, corrosive question began to haunt him: why was his mother? The usually stern and proper Miss Ren, extending such unwavering and inexplicable support to Shan. The girl had narrowly avoided expulsion after a blatant cheating scandal solely because of his mother's intervention. Yiling confronted Miss Ren directly, demanding an explanation. She offered a placid, rehearsed response. Shan was a talented student who deserved a second chance. Yiling found this impossible to accept. He knew Shan's manipulative and vindictive nature intimately. A deep, unsettling conviction took root within him. his mother was concealing a significant truth. The narrative then shifted to a quieter, somber moment. Rui Enning was shown with her parents, observing a muted, joyless acknowledgement of her birthday. The hospital where her father fought his illness was located in a distant city, a deliberate choice to access specialized care. This geographical isolation was the reason Rui Enning had relocated there with her mother, sacrificing her academic life to be present for her family. There were no celebrations, only forced smiles and a heavy, shared endurance. During a solitary walk outside the hospital grounds, Rui Enning had an unexpected encounter with Yi Ling. Their conversation began awkwardly but soon flowed with a familiar ease. Rui Enning asked what had brought him to this remote city. Yi Ling explained he was attending a family event and staying at a nearby hotel. After a hesitant pause, he gently broached the subject of his brother. "Yao, he misses you every single day," Yi Ling revealed, his voice soft. "He fills sketchbooks with your face. Perhaps you could see him just once?" Rui Enning fell into a deep silence. Her heart trembled violently at the mention of Yao, but she could not bring herself to form a reply, her guilt and self-imposed exile forming an impenetrable barrier. Simultaneously, a dark alliance was being fortified elsewhere. Shan and Miss Ren had formed a covert partnership. Shan insinuated herself close to Miss Ren's husband, acting as a spy and reporting his every move back to her benefactor. In return, Miss Ren funneled prestigious projects and opportunities to Shan, rapidly advancing her wealth and status. While engaged in this conspiratorial plotting, they observed Yi Ling and Rui Enning conversing in the distance. The sight triggered a visible, furious reaction in Miss Ren, her expression twisting with immediate and potent anger. In a subsequent fateful twist, Rui Enning found herself at the same hotel for a professional errand. A staff member casually mentioned that her mother had also been seen there. Rui Enning was bewildered. Why would her mother be at a hotel? A cold dread seizing her, she went upstairs and called out. Her mother, Miss Ming, emerged from a room, flustered, offering a flimsy excuse about shopping at the hotel's boutique. Rui Enning's instincts screamed. Her mother never lied to her. Before she could process this, Miss Ming noticed Rui Enning's presence and paled with shock. Driven by a terrible foreboding, Rui Enning pushed open the door her mother had just exited. Inside stood Mr. Yi, Yi Ling, and Yao's father. In that instant, Rui Enning's mental world imploded. Memories, Shan's poisonous accusations, and present evidence collided with catastrophic force. She confronted her mother, her voice breaking with emotion. "I changed my whole life for this family. I left university, I pushed Yao away, all so you could be with Dad. Have you forgotten how much he loves you, and you're here, with him?" Miss Ming was horrified, trying to explain that the meeting was innocent, demanding to know who had planted such ideas. But Rui Enning, blinded by betrayal, refused to listen. She turned to flee. Mr. Yi rushed after her, begging her to stop and hear the truth. Yi Ling arrived on the scene, utterly confused by the chaos. Mr. Yi admitted he harbored feelings for Miss Ming but insisted nothing dishonorable had ever occurred. Rui Enning remained deaf to his pleas. From the hotel balcony, Miss Ming cried out for her daughter to wait. Rui Enning spun around, tears of rage streaming down her face. "I will never forgive you, I hate you," she screamed, the words leaving her lips like a curse. In the visceral shock of that moment, Miss Ming lost her balance and fell from the balcony. Mr. Yi and Yi Ling lunged forward, but it was too late. The impact was fatal. Rui Enning's mind shattered. She entered a state of complete denial, muttering that her mother was at the hospital with her father, that she needed to go to them. Yi Ling tried desperately to hold her, to anchor her to reality, but she wrenched free and ran blindly into the street. A speeding car bore down on her. With no thought for his own safety, Yi Ling shoved her out of the path. The car struck him with full force, killing him instantly. This second, unimaginable loss was the final blow. Rui Enning collapsed into darkness. She awoke in a hospital bed 2 days later to find Katie and Chen Mo keeping vigil. Disoriented, she asked why they were there. Katie, her eyes red-rimmed, began to sob and tried to speak, but Chen Mo gently stopped her. Instead, Katie told her she had been unconscious and needed to eat. Rui Enning struggled to piece together the fragmented horror. Suddenly, the room's atmosphere turned glacial as Miss Ren stormed in. Consumed by a grief that had twisted into madness, she flew at Rui Enning, her hands closing around her throat. "You killed my son," she shrieked hysterically. "Give him back to me, you destroyed everything." She had to be physically pulled away by staff. In a parallel strand of memory, the narrative revisited a past confrontation. Shan, after yet another scheme, had finally confessed her own feelings for Yao. He had rejected her politely but firmly, stating he saw her only as a classmate. As she left dejected, he delivered a final, pointed reminder. The memory of her slapping Rui Enning would forever define her in his eyes. This rejection had further fueled Shan's smoldering resentment. In the present timeline of the past, before the tragedies, Shan, seething with this rejection, had sought to inflict maximum damage. She cornered Yi Ling and poisoned his mind with vicious lies. She claimed Yao was in love with Rui Enning and was betraying his brother's trust. She even accused Rui Enning of being unfaithful. For the first time, Yi Ling's calm demeanor shattered. He shouted at her to stop, but Shan, smirking, promised proof. She then called Rui Enning and lied, saying Yao was seriously injured and unconscious. The panic in Rui Enning's voice and her immediate, desperate flight to find Yao was the proof Shan coldly presented to a horrified Yi Ling. When Rui Enning found Yao perfectly fine, her worry quickly turned to confusion. Yao realized it was a cruel trick, but seeing the depth of her fear for him, a dam of emotion broke within him. He kissed her, an impulsive act of overwhelming feeling. They both froze in shock, and Yao, mortified, fled the scene, though privately elated. This moment, however, was witnessed by the ever-opportunistic student, ensuring it would become gossip fodder. As preparations for the crucial stage performance intensified, Rui Enning found herself distracted, the accidental kiss replaying in her mind. Backstage tensions flared again, with Shan mocking Rui Enning's wealth. Rui Enning retorted sharply, highlighting the hypocrisy. The situation was diffused only by Yao's arrival. In the devastating present of the hospital after Miss Ren's attack, doctors took Rui Enning to see her father. Katie pleaded with them, but the outcome was inevitable. Rui Enning entered the room to find her father in a coma. He never woke, never spoke. His breathing simply slowed and stopped. In a matter of days, Rui Enning had lost everyone, her mother, Yi Ling, and now her father. Her psyche collapsed entirely. She babbled incoherently about her name, wishing it were all a nightmare, as doctors sedated her. The story then leaped forward 3 years. The opening scene of the drama was now recontextualized. Yao, driving with a heart full of unresolved hatred, nearly ran over a woman. It was Rui Enning. He stopped just in time. They were meeting again under starkly different circumstances. Rui Enning had returned as the assistant to Professor Jin, an expert hired to restore ancient paintings in the Yi family mansion. Yao's hostility was palpable. He accused her of showing no remorse. Rui Enning, her spirit tempered by immense suffering, replied with detached calm that she was there only for work and he could have her dismissed if her presence was intolerable. That night alone, Rui Enning succumbed to her depression. She kept a pencil in her hair, a silent tribute to Yi Ling's kind gesture. Shan, now ostentatiously wealthy, learned of Rui Enning's return and was incensed. The next day, Yao forcibly took Rui Enning in his car, demanding to know how she could remain so composed. She replied that life had already meted out her punishment, and she sought only to work. In private, however, she wept bitterly, her strength a fragile facade. While working on the family archives, Yao told Rui Enning of a dark family legend, a curse where women who loved men from their lineage met with ruin or death. He mentioned a great-grandmother who had also died from a fall. The story triggered Rui Enning's trauma, making her dizzy. Yao noticed her medication and angrily revealed his own mother had become dependent on the same pills. He then pressed her for Yi Ling's last words. Rui Enning froze, refusing to answer, stating some burdens were meant to be carried alone. Later, Chen Mo and Katie, unable to bear the continued misunderstanding, finally told Yao the full truth of Rui Enning's suffering, her severe depression, how she had donated most of her inheritance, and the profound, unhealed wounds she carried. That night, Rui Enning dreamt of Yi Ling. He told her she was not to blame for his death and implored her to tell Yao his final message. The next morning, Yao found Rui Enning on a balcony, lost in a panic attack. Terrified she might jump, he pulled her into a fierce embrace, shouting that she should stop blaming herself. At that moment, Shan arrived, her timing impeccably cruel. Later, she tried to humiliate Rui Enning by taking her to a luxurious restaurant, mocking her apparent poverty. Rui Enning calmly revealed she owned the resort and several businesses, choosing a simple life by preference. Shan was left humiliated. Back at the mansion, Rui Enning encountered Miss Ren, now mentally unstable, a shell of her former self, wandering the halls in grief-stricken confusion. Shan continued her taunts, blaming Rui Enning for the family's destruction. That night, Rui Enning broke down in her room. Yao brought her warm milk and heard her crying through the door. He entered to comfort her, and they held each other in wordless solace. Shan watched this intimate moment from the shadows, her hatred intensifying. When Yao emerged, Shan unleashed her venom. She taunted him about not being the family's real son and accused Rui Enning of destroying everything. Yao finally snapped, coldly dismissing her. "You are just my mother's assistant. You mean nothing to this family. Stop pretending you belong here." He recounted all she had done, exposing her true nature as vile and manipulative, and issued a final warning to leave Rui Enning alone. Shan stood stunned, her world crumbling. In a final, climactic confrontation, Shan confronted Rui Enning in the restoration studio. She viciously attacked Rui Enning, claiming she used her illness to manipulate Yao's sympathy. She spewed hatred, even reveling in the death of Rui Enning's mother, whom she claimed had always treated her like trash. Then she delivered the devastating truth. Rui Enning's mother had not died by accident, she had been pushed, and the perpetrator was Miss Ren. A flashback revealed the full tragic scene. Miss Ming had been in the hotel room pleading with Mr. Yi to leave her alone to respect her family. Mr. Yi, broken, confessed that marrying Miss Ren under family pressure was his life's greatest regret. Miss Ren, eavesdropping from above, was consumed by decades of jealous rage. When Miss Ming stepped onto the balcony, Miss Ren, in a fit of madness, pushed her to her death. Shan had witnessed it all. Her sudden wealth was the fruit of years of blackmailing Miss Ren with this secret. Shan revealed this to ensure that every time Rui Enning looked at Yao, she would see the son of her mother's murderer. Rui Enning, shaken to her core, asked how Shan could live with such a secret. Shan replied she had done it to watch Rui Enning suffer and gloated that without proof, Rui Enning was powerless. It was then that Rui Enning revealed the small recording device she always carried. "I have my proof now," she stated calmly. Enraged, Shan lunged for the recorder. A violent struggle ensued. Shan, overpowered by fury, pushed Rui Enning toward the balcony's edge. Yao arrived just in time, catching Rui Enning's hand as she slipped. Holding on desperately, he cried out, "I love you," a plea meant to give her the will to hold on, but also a raw, undeniable truth. Hearing this, Shan's fight drained away. She realized she had lost irrevocably. In a final paradoxical act of defeat, she helped pull Rui Enning to safety. Shan then left the mansion forever, acknowledging that despite all her wealth and scheming, she could never eclipse Rui Enning in Yao's heart. Rui Enning, holding the evidence that could imprison Miss Ren, chose not to use it. The woman was already imprisoned by her own madness and grief, a punishment perhaps more fitting than a cell. Miss Ren, in her fractured state, begged Rui Enning for Yi Ling's last words. Rui Enning, remembering the woman's crime against her own mother, turned and walked away without answering, leaving Miss Ren screaming into the void. Outside, Rui Enning finally allowed herself to recall Yi Ling's final message to her, that he was stepping aside for her happiness, that his love was real but he would let her go. With the truth exposed and Shan gone, a painful peace began to settle. Katie and Chenmo became engaged, their simple happiness a counterpoint to the grand tragedy. Rui Enning, visiting her old university, was flooded with memories of her playful, combative, and deeply felt relationship with Yao. Standing amidst those ghosts of a happier past, she finally whispered aloud to the empty air and to her own heart, "I really love you, Yao." Unbeknownst to her, Yao was standing behind her. Hearing those words, a profound, cautious joy illuminated his face. He understood that Rui Enning, though still healing, was finally ready to reopen her heart and step back into a shared future with him. With this moment of tentative reconciliation and hard-won hope, their long, turbulent story found its fragile, forward-looking conclusion.